Welcome to
Hi.
the show.
Yeah, I've never done a podcast.
Oh, this is so exciting. So,
Yeah.
it's recording us. Let's just hope that the audio and everything is good because this is my first time doing Zoom, but I love it because I feel like you need expressions and stuff.
I know. I've done a lot of Zoom for like school and work and stuff. So
Well, yeah,
here we are.
I've
We're
done a
back at
Zoom,
it.
but
But you've never
not for
done a
the
Zoom podcast.
podcast.
Okay.
I just took like a 5-minute shower and so quick. I'm like, I need to wash myself. I have Alex in my bed on the iPad. I'm like,
Oh
only
my
if it's an
gosh.
emergency, come here. But it's probably going to be like part of the podcast if the kids come up and bother
A
me.
100%. A
Very
hundred
fitting.
percent. I know.
So,
I was debating on the shower and I was like, you know what? I don't know if I'll really be able to squeeze it in. So I said, we're coming here just full on, like this is how it
yeah,
is
my
every day,
hair's
right?
soaking wet. I just threw on some concealer and some lip gloss. I was like, let's call it a day. I have
Yeah.
my plain background. I was like, I don't know how this is going to be. Do I look like I'm in jail?
Oh my gosh. That is so funny. If it was
So,
beige, I would say yes.
yeah, I know. So I would not have this episode without you. Like I literally have been
Oh my
putting
gosh.
off this episode because it wasn't going to be with anyone but you. And I was telling
You're so funny.
like my husband that, and I was like, no, I this is like one of the most important conversations that I'm going to have, and it's so close to my heart because of it's
Hmm.
what started all of this healing and me kind of finding
Yeah.
myself and grounding myself. This is like what started all of this, talking about like and everything postpartum. And you are
Hmm.
truly like the one person that I felt like when we would talk, we just knew. Like we just
Yeah.
knew
I always felt like we really connected over that.
for sure. So, everyone, this is my cousin Britney Carr. And we have so many similarities. We're both moms of three. You're just girl gang and I'm boy gang.
Yep. Yep. It's all girls in this house. Wouldn't trade it for anything. We're having so much fun.
So
Girl
Brittany and
gang
I
for sure.
met many years ago. She married my cousin, so we're family, and it's been so fun because we've shared now two pregnancies at the same time together.
I know with the second one, we had the exact same due date. How crazy was that?
I was literally writing down notes of
So
like,
unplanned.
okay,
Like,
what are these questions I'm going to ask? What are these things we're going to talk about? And I was like, wow, our similarities, we have so many
hmm.
similarities, especially like our older ones are
Yeah.
from
We've got
different,
the blended families.
situations. Like we have a
Yeah.
lot of similarities in that sense too, except you're just the girl
Hmm.
gang. So our last baby had the exact same due date, and I
Hmm.
think I had to have Zachary 3 weeks early, and you were 3 weeks late, right?
I was only about a week late, so it made
Week
them
late.
about a month apart. Yeah, so having the same exact due date, and then they have birthdays that ended up being a month apart.
What's
Yeah.
so funny is when I was pregnant with Alex and you were pregnant with Nora, you and David invited Roger and I to your
I
house.
just told somebody this story like 2 days ago, and I was cracking myself up. Oh my gosh.
So your oldest daughter, Ren, answered the door with a big sister t-shirt on, and we were planning to
Yes.
come over and tell you that we were pregnant. So we literally were telling each other that we're pregnant. It was the coolest thing.
And I thought you were joking with us, remember? I didn't take you seriously at all at first. I was like, oh, she's just like playing a game with us. And then it really sunk in, and it was just so crazy because then we ended up with both of the pregnancies being pregnant at the exact same time, totally unplanned. Like, what are the chances of that?
Yeah, I was like, I gotta find some of our pregnancy pictures because I know we took at least one with each pregnancy, so we gotta post those because those are
Yeah.
so cute.
Yeah.
But it's cute because I think about like my mom and like and David's mom and stuff. They were all kind of pregnant at the same time and
Mm-hmm.
stuff too. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just like the new era of pregnant women.
Yeah, I feel like we're kind of bringing in that like new generation, and it's so fun to see the cousins together. And honestly, it ties into this whole postpartum conversation, maternity, everything. We have the exact same due date, and then look at they're a month apart. Their actual birthdays are a month apart. Like everything is so unpredictable. Everything
Yeah,
is just like you got to just run with what you have. I feel like that fits into this conversation so perfectly.
for sure. So how old were you when you had your oldest, when you had Ren?
21.
21. So you
Yeah,
celebrated your 21st birthday pregnant.
I did. I did. Yeah.
That's a
And
whole new life
I found out
change.
I was pregnant like a month before I turned 21. So I celebrated my 21st birthday with like pretty freshly finding out I was pregnant. Yeah.
I think Alex said it was my dirty 30.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
because I feel like even though I was what, I think it was 28 or 29 when I got pregnant with Alex, but I felt like just the 5 years or 3.5 years in between pregnancies, I felt like even just that sliver of being in my 20s versus being in my 30s pregnant was so
Hmm.
different. Did you feel like it was really different?
Very different. At 21, I felt so much older as a 21-year-old. I felt older than I feel like I feel now. Like I feel like I know less at
Now,
36 than I felt like I did at 21. Like I felt like I was saying, "All right, I got this. Bring it." Like I'm grown now. You know what I mean?
I've
And
said this
now
two
upon
times in different
reflecting,
podcasts that I thought I knew it all in my 20s.
yes. And I reflect on that and I go, "Oh my gosh, I was a baby having a baby." Like it's not quite the 16 and pregnant, but looking back and you know that now just as of recently with a job change, I work with teens and young adults into their early 20s. Like some of the kids I work with are 21 and they just seem so young to me. And it's
Mhm.
crazy to
Yeah.
think how grown I felt at 21.
Yeah, I thought I had it all figured out. I knew what I wanted. I knew who
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be, and I was just so mature. And I couldn't imagine having like my 21 to 24 years, even like no baby should have ever been in me. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
It's you feel like you knew more, but you know that you know more now, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I think it
Mm-hmm.
was like we had
Yeah.
more confidence then.
Definitely. And I feel like it's taken me, so I feel like as an individual, I had more confidence, but then I feel like it's taken me like kind of the last 15 years of parenting to kind of feel a little more confident in my parenting.
Yeah. That's it's hard because there's
Yeah.
so many comparisons. I mean, even us, like, oh, is Nora doing this yet? Or is Alex late?
Mm-hmm.
Is this that? And there's so many when they start walking, when they start crawling, all the milestones are so different. And a lot of times I just took Zachary to the dentist and he had to have the lip tie released above his lip.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was playing in the play area and he had really never been around any other babies besides Chloe. And the this mom was like, when did he start walking? And I can tell her concern in her child. And I was like, to
Mm-hmm.
be honest with you, my middle child, he walked at 9.5 months and this one walked at 13 months. So you just don't compare yourself to other children. He'll get there. Like,
Yeah.
and I remember that. Like, I remember even just comparing my two littles. Like, oh my God, Alex was doing this and Zachary's not. He's took forever to sit up, took forever to start balancing himself. And
Mm-hmm.
you just compare with like the middle ones. I don't know what's up with our middle children, but they
A
are
lot of
just
energy is
very
a lot of
advanced.
energy.
I am like taking the world by storm for sure.
Oh my
But the
gosh.
little
Yeah.
ones, which is kind of like, I think they're the babies. They're literally like, no, we can take our time. Let's
Mm-hmm.
soak this in.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so crazy. Did you feel like your body would bounce back a little bit easier with Ren than it was compared?
Oh, definitely. Oh my gosh. I was a young 21-year-old who was going to the gym every single day. I was at the gym every day. Like, let me tell you, I was fit. So I had an easy peasy. Okay, sorry. Can you hear the notifications going off on my?
No.
Oh, good. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't interrupting us. Um, I had a very smooth pregnancy. You know, I had the morning sickness and everything, but after she was born, I had a very smooth delivery. I purposefully changed things from how that delivery went by choice, but for not being super educated in delivery and all things postpartum, I felt like I had a very smooth experience. I was like out walking the neighborhood 3 days postpartum, like baby in stroller, like taking strolls around the block 3 days
Wow.
postpartum. Oh, I mean, very, very
All
different
three were
postpartum
natural? You had all
experience.
three natural?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I felt like I had like one natural and one C-section, and they were just so wildly different. But I mean, this
right?
is
So
me
I had
seeing from
three
afar.
natural, and I feel like my first two were very, very similar, and then my last one was extremely different. So even that was
Our
made
bodies.
my postpartum very different between the three. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so different. Did you feel the effects of any of the postpartum depression, anxiety, or any of those postpartum issues with Ren?
So what's funny is I did, but I did not recognize it. Like
Yeah.
another thing about the 20s and the 30s for me was like reflecting back and going, oh wow, like I was struggling during that period. Like, oh wow, I was, I do see those episodes of postpartum depression. And with her, it was very brief, but reflecting back, I can see now what I didn't see then. I mean, obviously that happens in a lot of situations, but yeah, I did struggle with some stuff, but thankfully I feel like being younger, and I had just been at the time, with the partying aside, fairly healthy as far as what I ate and
Yeah.
things like that and working out. So I feel like my postpartum was overall really good with her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's when the younger you are, I feel like you can kind of bounce back and you're not as educated and in tune with your body and what's
Mm-hmm.
going
Not as
on.
in tune. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
I felt way more in tune and recognizing it because with Alex, it's only, and I think that's why I feel like when we have these 6 week checkups when we after we have the baby, I
Oh my
feel like
God,
the
not
husband should
enough.
get one too.
Oh,
Because
also true. Yes.
I feel
Yeah.
like we have a heart, we're so like taking care of the baby, sleep deprived, and our focus is just baby, 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 that we have no focus on ourselves. And I feel like the husband should be the one to get like, is she like this? Is she like that? Is she doing this? Is she doing that? Because we're not recognizing it in the first few months at all, what's going on. And it doesn't
Well, and not only that, I
happen right
lied on all
away.
those questionnaires no matter what. Like, no matter what I was feeling, I just lied on all the questionnaires because I didn't want to deal with it.
Or be there for
Like,
longer than I had to.
or be there longer than I had to, or have them start, like, I didn't want the doctor to start being concerned and like have that interfere with my home life, I guess. I don't really know. Like, I mean, I just lied on all the questionnaires anyways.
My cousins used to laugh at me because they used to. I remember one time saying like, "I always lie to my doctors," and they were like, "Why would you lie to your doctor?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't want them to have to like." And I remember there was some point that I acknowledged that I had like, not. It wasn't. It was before I had kids that I had like anxiety or suicidal thoughts and things like that. And now that forever carried on to me. And when I had Alex, I had to have somebody come in and like talk to me before I left the
Mm-hmm.
hospital. And that was from when I was like a teenager. So
See,
that
and people
it's
get
not the
concerned
bad
about
thing that
that.
they
They don't,
check up on you, but it's like,
yeah.
see what I told the truth. Now they're crazy on me. But
Yeah.
it's necessary. I think they're doing their job and following through, but it does carry on with you.
Which
So
is
that's
good.
why
It's good to see that there is some type of follow through on that because at my 6 week checkup with the littlest one, Chloe, who's a year and a half, um, I I did lie, but there was a couple of ones where I was like, oh, this one doesn't seem so bad, and I really am feeling that way. And I did get diagnosed with like mild postpartum depression with the last baby. And I was grateful because she ended up taking me off of work for longer. And I
oh,
felt like I
sorry.
really needed that. So,
Okay, so you could say hi to Prima Brittany. Hi.
Hi.
Can I help you with
hi.
something?
I want to get this Swamp Stuffy from Mario.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it for your
Look,
Oh,
birthday, maybe.
look.
He's
I'm
oh,
playing
playing.
a
I
Mario.
see. I see
I'm
it.
playing Mario.
Oh, good. That sounds fun.
Prima, okay?
I just want to show her how the game
Okay,
works.
real quick.
Okay.
So you
Mm-hmm.
have to push this, then
Oh, and I hear it too.
Very cool.
And
You
there
can
you
show
go.
Nora one day, okay? That's Nora's mommy, remember?
yeah.
Okay, say
Yeah.
bye.
Bye.
Okay, go in mommy's
Bye.
room and we'll talk in a minute. He's really into Super Mario Brothers right now, which I'm very excited.
That's
It's
so cute.
nostalgic. Sorry. So
Yeah.
you did get diagnosed with mild postpartum depression.
I did, and that was even with me lying on the questionnaire.
Wow. See,
Mm-hmm.
it took, I think that I lied a lot with Zachary because I didn't know. And I realized that I started off with postpartum rage. And the only reason why I knew what
Mm,
postpartum rage was is because you gave me a book.
mm-hmm.
And I was reading, what was it called? I'll have to figure out what the name was, but it was like it felt like just this like cartoon version of what like postpartum everything was. And it was lighthearted, but gave some normalcy to like all the thoughts and things that were happening. And it had mentioned postpartum rage. And I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. And I was
Mm-hmm.
catching myself being very snappy to Roger for nothing, for absolutely nothing. And it was like, why am I reacting like that? So that was my first postpartum issue. And then I started having the anxiety where I was just terrified of something happening to the kids. I think that's super common, especially
I
for new
think I
moms.
had more of that type of anxiety after Ren, not necessarily like the postpartum depression, but that anxiety was what was really bad when Ren was born. And I think it was being a first time mom. I know you have a blended family, but that was your first birth, right? That was the first baby you carried. So I think that might also go in line with that was my first baby too. The anxiety, like that worry was consuming.
Yeah, because you're watching the baby breathe. You're watching everything. That definitely happened with Alexander. I went so long without sleeping. I feel like the whole first year I barely slept
Mm-hmm.
because then they say get to the year mark and then you're kind of out of that SIDS bracket.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you're like holding on to that 12-month, like then everything should be okay, like once he's 12 months. And then you start hearing about like toddlers. I'm like, when does it end? Like nothing,
Mm-hmm.
there's no end to this new fear of anxiety. That's why I was talking to somebody on one of the last podcasts where they're like, oh, has your anxiety subsided? I'm like, it's just a whole different beast now. It's not the anxiety of the
and
unknown of
that's
where I'm
and
going with
that's
my
it, it'll
life.
just keep evolving. I've got a
Yeah.
50 she's she's almost 15, and it's just whole new anxieties. Like she's going to school, I have no idea what happens during her school day, like, and she only controls what she tells me. Like there's so much that I'm not privy to, like there's so much that I'm closed off from, and you just have to kind of trust. And that's hard.
Yeah, and you start putting yourself like, what was I doing when I was 15?
Ooh,
Yeah, and I'm
you
like,
forget. You
I,
forget.
I don't
Oh,
know.
you
I don't
forget.
know. Maybe there's a reason I don't have girls because they're like, you can deal with the boy side of that. But I also feel like I was telling Roger, I am gonna be so open about how they are to girls, women in general. Like
Mm-hmm.
I am going to get so upset if they ever even like have sex with someone drunk and or something like that. Like I just am so sensitive off of those things because I think I was so taken advantage in so many situations like that
Mm-hmm.
that even though it might have felt like it was like I was being declined or something like that, it would have helped shame or something the next day. And it's like, if you really like a girl, then you need to say like, we could, whatever when you're sober or things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So I feel like I'm gonna be a boy mom, but like catering to girls.
No, you're going to be catering to like educating your boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I definitely want to do that
you're
because it's new
you're
gen.
raising them. That I would say that that's like 100% included in raising them, because on the same side, I'm trying to make sure that I teach my girls boundaries, and no means no, you know what I mean? And it's there's so much gray area. So
Lots
that's
of peer
another hard
pressure for sure at
conversation.
that
Yeah,
age.
yeah.
And I think my family, like no one ever talked about that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of curiosity when you don't talk about it and like what it is, what happens, or whatever. Like there has to be more open dialogues now because I think that is a lot of curiosity, like, is why a lot of, for instance, me went into situations that I wouldn't have gone into if I would have just been informed. Like I was the
Yep.
question girl. I wanted to know why, but why, but why, but why. And I never got answers to any of that. It was just kind of like
Yeah.
too young. We don't need to have that conversation.
Yeah. I try to be an open book. taking a page out of Brene, I don't know if you're familiar with Brene Brown, but taking a page out of Brene Brown's book of, the power of vulnerability. I've tried to kind of adopt that philosophy. And I feel like being vulnerable and just letting myself cry when I need to cry, not being ashamed to cry out in public situations, for example, and just being everything I am through and through everywhere I go. You know what I mean? Um, and letting myself be vulnerable with other parents, other moms, and letting myself be vulnerable, just connecting with people in general has helped me be that way with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And my teenager can see if I'm having a rough day, I'm really honest with her about it. And if I'm telling her, hey, I'm struggling today, I'm having a hard time being empathetic towards you because I don't have that capacity right now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And letting her see me be vulnerable, and letting her see that we can have open conversations, to make sure that I can educate her on her knows, her boundaries, what's appropriate as a teenager as far as physical affection, and having the conversations that you and I didn't have.
Yeah, for sure. I remember the one single time my mom was vulnerable to me. Like it stands out so much to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had like a really toxic high school boyfriend, and my mom and my sisters were like begging me not to date him and begging me. And I'm like, but mama, I love him. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like it's stupid, right? Now that we look back at it. And I was just like, I love him, I love him. And my mom was so vulnerable with me this one time and sat me down on the bed and talked to me about a really crazy experience she had when she was younger. And that
Mm-hmm.
was the only time she was vulnerable with me. And till this day, I could vividly remember every word she said to me and how I felt like she was so relatable in that.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of the impact it had on you.
And
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
if I had more talks like that, but I don't blame her for anything. They just were never given that opportunity themselves from their parents. So it was just like, don't talk, don't tell, don't say anything. If it's you don't talk about it, it's not happening. But
Yeah,
it
and it was
is
even
shows.
worse for the generation before them. Like, you can see the changes happening generation to generation. And I know you have sisters, I have a sister, and I feel like I've really connected with my sister on our lack of having those vulnerable conversations. Um, and my sister, has only girls. So my
Yeah,
sister's got a girl gang. She has three girls. I've got my girl gang, and my sister and I talk often about how important it is for us to have those conversations with our kids, boys or girls, your kids,
yeah,
just
for
no matter
sure.
what.
I think too what Roger and I do differently with Alex per se, because he's the one that's with us most of the time, is if one of us is grumpy, bad mood or whatever, and we project that on him or like
Mm-hmm.
snap or yell, I think we acknowledge that that was a us thing, and we apologize to him for it and say like, it's not okay that mommy yelled at you like that. I'm really sorry that I did that. It's not okay. You should not be talked to like that. And I'm sure there's a little trauma that's happening there, but at the same time, like it's okay to mess up, but you have to acknowledge it and kind of like redeem yourself a little bit. And I don't think that there was ever apologies in the
Mm-hmm.
generation that my husband and I grew up in. And we're trying to teach him like we're not perfect beings and we screw up. I'm never going to be a perfect parent. But at least I know that that was a me thing and not a him thing. And I took it out on him, and I want him to know that like I am genuinely sorry and that's not okay. I want him to know that's not okay when people talk to you like that or yell at you like that. It's not
Yeah,
normal.
I'm a huge believer in apologizing to your kids when it's necessary. I've actually had interactions where I have had to deal with, my teenager and say, I'm not apologizing. You're unhappy with what I said, what I did, whatever the case was at that moment. And I've had to tell her, no, I'm not apologizing because I felt like I did what I needed to do as a parent.
Yeah.
So there's times when I have to stand on the line and say, this is it. but there's a lot of times I have to fall on the sword. And like you said, you're owning it. You know, if there's a reconciliation there. And the kids that I interact with at work lack that reconciliation, and you can see the damage it's done.
Yeah.
You know, you can see the trauma without the follow-up. You know, it's a full circle thing. You know, you have the outburst, it happens, we're human, but the apology and the reconciliation that comes and bringing it back to a place where you're connecting again is just so important, because otherwise you're abandoning the situation.
Yeah. And I know, like, as getting, being married, and now you're not just a mom, you're married, and that's a whole
Mm-hmm.
other growth experiment, I would say, because you're taking like two different ways of how you were grown up, trying to mold it into this one way of parenting with the both of you guys. And I
Mm-hmm.
think balancing how you want to parent with another person is like it's a balancing act, actually, because one
Yeah,
may
and it
think
can lead
that's
to a lot of
normal, one's like that's not
frustration
normal.
too. It can lead to a lot of frustration, and if you're struggling as a mom, if you're building that up with your partner, that frustration, if you guys aren't on the same page, that can really affect your mental health too.
Yeah, I think when Roger and I got married, we got to a point where like, wait, you're being your mom and I'm being my mom, and we're being our moms to each other. And
Mm-hmm.
we're like, let's not, because that's all
Yeah,
we
that one's a
knew.
big
Like,
eye
we
opener.
had our
That one
moms
too.
telling us what to do all the time, and like, do it this way, not that way. And we were kind of just like nitpicking, nitpicking, nitpicking. And we're like, hey, we're not each other's
Isn't
children.
that crazy how we turn into our parents? Oh my
And
gosh.
you avoid that your
Oh,
whole time. And I even see like, I'm like, oh my God, the Manuela's coming out of me. Like,
mm-hmm.
I need to chill for a second. I need to reevaluate the situation. Again, no hate on my mom, but like I think everyone can relate to becoming like their own parent when they parent, because
Yeah, and
that's
it's
you are a
scary.
product of your environment.
It's scary when I feel like I'm turning into my parents. Like once I recognize it, I go, oh gosh, wow. I don't like that.
For sure. I think I don't know about like your family line, but I know that that me and David's family line, there's a lot of anxiety, depression, mental health.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um and I think about like specifically like my grandma and her siblings, they had a lot of mental health things going on, but a lot of them had so many kids. And when I
Yeah.
think about that, I'm like, they had postpartum things going on.
Yeah, I didn't even
My
think of that.
my godmother, that lives in Portugal, her mom passed away when she was like 1 or 2 years old. And I never knew the story until like a couple weeks ago. My mom told me that she was having a lot of like mental health things, and they took her to a mental health institution or something to try to get help um in Lisbon, and she committed suicide. And I'm like, that's
Oh, wow.
postpartum. She was only 1 years old. Like, her baby was only 1 years old. She was 22 years
Yeah.
old.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, so out of those siblings, like there's a lot of those women that had children and then had mental health issues, but there was no resources and nothing, and no one saying like this happens.
Well,
This
and
is
as I
a
say,
normal
that's the
feeling.
scary part is like it can happen so fast and it can happen without anybody else recognizing it. I mean, it's just so scary.
I've meant to text you it today because I was looking at some stats and stuff, and I didn't even realize this, but suicide accounts for up to 20% of postpartum deaths.
Oh,
That's a big
wow.
percentage. Yes. I got some goldfish. And then 1 in 7 women suffer from postpartum depression, and up to 50% of individuals with postpartum depression are never detected.
Wow.
Oh, I just got a notification. Hold on. Let me see. Wait a second. I didn't know I have to upgrade to. I don't know if I could do it while we're on here. It says, okay, well, we'll see what happens. I put upgrade, but I don't know. But yeah, those statistics are very scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I dealt with Alexander, I dealt with a lot of fear, more fear. Like I was really scared to leave him with anyone with had like a separation anxiety a lot with him.
Oh my gosh, I felt like I had to be in the room, even if somebody else was holding her with my oldest one. Like I had a hard time walking out of a room if somebody else was holding her.
Yeah, even and with Zachary, I have a lot of that. I think because he was just one of those babies that just cried so much. He was such a, I
Mm-hmm.
remember when you guys came over when he was a few months old, he was like sleeping well, but he was a hard baby, hard baby. I know
Mm-hmm.
people have it worse, but he was really hard. And that's where a lot of where I realized like what truly is postpartum depression, anxiety, and rage was through
Yeah.
Zachary because I thought I knew it all, and I always called myself a baby whisperer before I even had babies. And with him, I just couldn't figure him out. I couldn't, and I just felt like, what the hell? I thought I knew everything about babies, how to calm them down and everything, and I couldn't do it. And there
Yeah.
was one time
Your
where
baby wasn't cooperating.
and he was struggling adjusting. And
Mhm.
there was one time where I was in the room with Zachary and he's just crying and crying, crying. It was so hard to get him to nap and sleep or anything. And I didn't realize the monitor was on and Roger's in the living room listening. And I kind of screamed, enough. And it was that
Mhm.
moment of like desperation. And he like, and then I see him like creak in the room, like check up on me. And I looked at him and I just knew like he was scared that I was
Mhm.
gonna do something to the baby or something like that. And
Yeah.
I looked at him like, I'm fine, but like I needed to say it. Like enough is enough. Like how am I gonna do this? And I was like, it was just so hard for me. And I think once you have like the textbook baby, which I felt like in a lot of ways Alex was,
Yeah. Same with my
it's
first one. Same.
and to then have Zachary, like it was so hard for me and I struggled a lot. And to the point where when that happened, then I started realizing that I was when he was uncontrollably crying and inconsolable, I had intrusive thoughts and I had like
Hmm.
visions of me throwing him against the wall.
Yep.
I knew I wasn't so far deep where I wasn't like in a psychosis and I wasn't actually going to do it, but I think the struggle in my mind was so intense that I envisioned that. And then I would cry because I would look at this sweet face and I'm like, what a monster I am. And I was so scared to tell Roger that because I'm like, I'm going to be put in some like crazy house or something. And then I started going through like this is really deep and that's when I said, Roger, I think I need to talk to somebody. And thankfully through Roger's work, they have like a program for moms. And I was on a weekly phone call for a long time, just checking in, just checking in, just checking in. And I didn't tell her that. I didn't tell her that I had intrusive thoughts because what a monster I am. Like what a crazy person I am. And it was only really like I think when that whole Lindsay Clancy thing, which I feel like I can't relate to her anymore because now that everything's come out, like it doesn't seem like it was as postpartum as we
Yeah.
think it might be, but is when I was like, we need to talk about intrusive thoughts. Like, I don't know if you have ever experienced that, but I feel like my babies, I am such a like loving, affectionate mom. And at the same time that I had like enough and was so stressed out about the baby, I was feeling terrible about myself as a mom. Like, I wanted
Yeah.
this baby so bad. I wanted another baby so bad. And now,
And
like,
now look at me.
now I want
Yeah.
to throw my baby against the wall. What the hell? It's so sad.
Yeah. And it's an important conversation too.
And that's why when I was like, I had never heard of postpartum psychosis either. And I was like, this all makes sense. And all the things that I thought of, like when I first had Alice, I was like, this is a lot of work. Like a baby's a lot of work. This is crazy. This is a
Hmm.
lot of work. And I started thinking about like the 16-year-olds that have babies, the people that leave their baby at the fire station, the people that throw away their babies,
Yeah.
the people that shake
And
their
then
babies.
anything you do, like this is what I felt like with my first one. I felt like anything I did that was negative, like anything I did where I felt like I was messing up, like not being the best mom, I immediately felt guilty because I had a baby.
Yeah.
And there were so many people that didn't. So then I'd end up in this like sick, twisted, like guilt for just having a baby.
Yeah.
Like
I
I
know.
felt like I didn't get to enjoy it.
Yeah. I remember one time you were like, we were talking about, because we never fully ever got to fully get into it because we always had the
Yeah.
babies. But I remember one time you were kind of expressing that you were having a hard time after Chloe, and David said, but you've been good, you've been fine. And you kind of looked at him like you have no freaking idea. And
Uh,
that moment related to me so much because they just don't. Because we're the type of moms that do it all no matter what. I mean, it's so hard work.
oh, I was waiting for like how long it would take me to cry.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
you're good. You're good. I just like I like got like this wave of being like right back in it, and it was it's like it's a
it's
lot, you
hard.
know.
Yeah, I
Like I honestly forgot how I felt after Chloe, and I felt like I'm like remembering that like I went through some really deep, dark places after her,
I
and
know.
I've really
So
come
sorry.
out of it. But oh wow, like I have like it just like hit me like a ton of bricks.
I'm sorry. It
Oh, you're good.
we struggled a lot with those babies
Oh,
and
we did.
a lot
And she
and
was such a good baby. She was such an easy baby, but I struggled the most. Yeah,
I
out of all
felt a
three, that
lot
was
of
my
hormonal
roughest.
imbalances. I still don't feel 100% of my hormones balanced, but my
Yeah.
hormonal imbalance was nuts. And all
Well,
the
that
postpartum
third
things was
baby
crazy.
rocked me hardcore. Like that third baby rocked me to my core. Like, oh, she made me question everything I was, everything. Like, it was a lot.
I think that as hard as Zachary was, when I think about it now, because in it, you're just like, how am I going to get to the next day? As hard as it was with Zachary, he's the reason why I sought out help, and he's the reason why I feel like I've come over the hump and I'm on
Yeah.
this positive light. So as hard as he was, he's such a purpose for me. Like
Yeah.
he's
Here we
he's a
go.
big he he really like brought the best version that I've never known this Sylvia in my whole
See,
entire
and that's
life.
how I feel with Chloe. That's how I feel like I really found myself.
Yeah. It's like, you know, getting on the hump and like processing, facing is like the hardest part. But when you come down, you're like, oh my God, I like this person
Yeah.
now. I didn't even know I didn't like that person, but I like this person so much more now.
Well, like
So
I didn't even see that I was growing. Like I didn't see when I was in it, like I didn't see that I was growing. And now that I'm like I feel like I'm kind of on the other side of it. Like I'm going, oh wow, like those were growing pains. You
yeah,
know, that was a lot of
oh,
growing pains.
for sure. Um,
But to touch on, like you mentioned your husband, and I just want to say that like having a partner makes a huge difference. Having a supportive partner makes a huge difference.
yeah.
My husband happens to be your cousin. So that's fun. And I'm super thankful. I have a very supportive partner in my husband. Um, I wouldn't be anything that I am without him.
For sure.
But it was a big struggle because there was one time we were in the house, and this is one of the things I remember I shared with you. I looked at him and I said, I'm not okay. And he
Yeah.
said, but hun, it was a struggle because I felt like I was really trying to cry out to somebody. And he kept telling me, I would know if you weren't okay because it's true. Sometimes he does know me better than I know myself.
Mhm.
And I love him to death and I wouldn't trade him for anything. but he wasn't recognizing it. He wasn't seeing how much I was struggling. And when I tried to cry out for help, he said, "But babe, you seem like you're doing fine. I would know if you weren't." And I literally looked him in the eye and said, "I'm not okay."
Yeah.
So then it made me, it kind of made me not really want to reach out to anybody else because I was telling people I wasn't okay and people were just saying, "Oh, yeah, yeah." Like, so
Yeah, I
it was
remember
hard.
saying something, I think it was to my sisters or something like in those regards of I'm not okay, this and that. And I remember my sister saying like like reaching out. Maybe I've been really worried about you. I was kind of thinking about reaching out to Roger, but I didn't want to like overstep my boundaries or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'm good. And it's like
I
moments.
do feel like other moms were the ones that I could say something to and they would show me support.
Uh,
Even just that text message from your sister of saying, "Hey, I'm worried." Like even that much, I felt like only other moms were doing that. We're like reaching out. We're even if I said, "Hey, I'm good," I still just the fact that somebody reached out helped.
Yeah, I feel like now more than ever, I'm like checking in on my pregnant friends, the ones that just had
Yes.
babies. I'm like, are you good? Let me know if you need anything. Or like,
Well,
I'll
and then
give
I think
people
back to
advice
me
of
as
like,
like, yeah, I think back to me as the 21-year-old mom, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I could have been so much more supportive to other moms. I had no idea." Other moms that had traumatic births or really difficult postpartum seasons. I felt like I kind of looked at it as like, I don't really know how I want to say it, but I felt like, well, I've got this. Why don't you have it too?
I think about that a lot about my oldest sister because she was the first one to have kids and we didn't have kids for so many years after. Like, I mean, we didn't start
Hmm.
having our own
Yeah,
kids.
yeah,
And so she was balancing her kids and stuff like that. And I thought, not that it was easy, but I would have never
yeah.
even been able to relate to the struggle of especially having two and 2 years apart. And I feel bad for her in the sense that I was just like this little sister having a
You
great
weren't,
time,
you were kind of insensitive to her
so
role, like to
insensitive.
everything. Yeah,
And I
that's what
think
I
I could
felt
have
like
been like
too.
think more helpful and more I wish that I could have been more mature and been because I know that that was a really hard time because when they're little it is the hardest time. And
Hmm.
um she's a really good mom and I wish that I could have been there for her more and she as like our sister front she was so on her own being the one to first have kids by herself for so long like we could not
Yeah,
relate to that struggle at all
my
and from
sister
the
and I had
outside
that
they were
too.
dressed so cute they were they were good when we saw them I would have never known if she struggled or anything but I think what stood out to me the
Yeah.
most is when she told me I think in the last few years that she had because I told her how I struggled with my intrusive thoughts and things like that and she told me that she warned her husband to say, if I start acting weird, like take me to the hospital. If I start
Good
saying
for
weird
her. Wow.
things or anything like that, take me in. And that's why I feel like when the 6 month checkup, there needs to be more than just like a checklist. It needs to
Hmm.
be like an actual like mental evaluation with like either a psychiatrist or something like that. And then there
I
also
actually heard
needs
that on a podcast recently. Well, it was an older episode of a podcast that I really like. It's called Coffee and Crumbs. And somebody was sharing that because she struggled so much with her first one and she didn't get help for quite a while after, she was just struggling. When she got pregnant with her second baby, what she did was towards the end of her pregnancy, she scheduled herself ahead of time. She was booked for a 6 week appointment with, or like, she booked herself sometime within those first 6 weeks. She booked herself an appointment with her therapist.
Mhm.
And so when she delivered her baby, that appointment was already there waiting for her.
Wow. Yeah,
And
because
I thought that was great advice. And it's not my advice. I heard it somewhere else, but I share it as often as I can because especially if you have an existing relationship with a therapist, to have something scheduled where you know that you're going to have somebody to talk to, um, can be a game changer.
Yeah, I have a cousin that just had a really traumatic um situation where she almost died after having the baby from
Oh my
I think it was
gosh.
sepsis. And they kept pushing her away and saying like, she'd go in the hospital, I don't feel right, I don't feel right. And they kept pushing her away until she finally went to another hospital and they finally were like, yeah, you got an infection after having the baby. And I told her, I said, you need to go to therapy. That's so traumatic. Like, and it's not just about the delivery and having the baby and having your new baby home. Like, you yourself almost died. And I think I related with that because
Yeah.
when I hemorrhaged, I had the vision of, to this day, I can see Roger holding Alexander and looking at him and thinking, I can't believe I'm leaving him with this baby. Like, I thought I was going to
Mhm.
die. And that does something to your brain. And you have to process that, but you're like,
It's like in there, it's like in that animal brain, like it does something deep in there that
yeah, your near death experiences
yeah,
definitely affect you. So, and she's like, no, you're right, you're right. I'm like, you need to go talk to somebody about it because that is trauma. As much as like you get so busy of like your baby eats every 2 hours and this and that, that you put a lot of that to the side. And then, man, Brittany, you did a lot of pumping and breastfeeding and all of that. That's a whole nother
that's
beast.
a whole
I
other
gave up.
conversation.
I gave up very easily. I don't think mentally I could handle it, and I knew that because
Part of
it
it
was
is a
so.
mental game, and that's definitely yeah, another like important note for everybody, that part of breastfeeding is getting over those mental humps. Yeah.
Because you feel like such an obligation as like you're the main food source for your
Well, and I
child.
put a lot of pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna keep saying it, this third baby, man, she rocked my world and she humbled me big time. I struggled a lot with my milk supply with her. I struggled with pumping, um, and as a third time mom, just recognizing how much I was struggling with all these aspects of postpartum parenting, motherhood, everything. Um, it really humbled me, and I'm really grateful that it gave me a lot of empathy for what other people are going through postpartum.
Being a mom changes you for sure. They're
Hmm.
like you soften up a little bit, and I think it even empowers women like standing by one another a lot because I
Definitely.
feel like sometimes I just know that somebody delivered and I kind of feel weak to my knees thinking like I hope she's has the support. I hope she's okay. And I tell people
Yeah.
like if you want to be there for like, people that don't have kids, if you want to be there for your friend, bring her coffee, bring her pre-made meals, ask if she needs her laundry
Check
folded.
in with
Like
her.
we
Ask how
don't
your
need like the
friends are
outfits and
doing.
the gifts and this and that. Like we need
Yeah.
help outside of it. Or
Yes.
like
No, 100%.
hold the baby
And
while I
that's,
take a shower.
again, I feel like that's something that, you create that community of motherhood. You support each other, and the moms who get it. Like, it's not about the cute outfits. Like, support that mom. And again, a first time mom, like, I did not understand. I really didn't. I feel like it has taken me 3 kids to really grasp onto these things. And I say kudos to you because I feel like you are rocking it. Like, you are checking in on your mom friends. Like, you are being such a good example of moms taking care of other moms, this podcast, everything. Um, but moms need to support each other. And it's like you said, the meals, a coffee drop off, just a text message. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How are you healing? Like, mentally, physically, those check-ins are big for postpartum.
For sure. I think that that helps to feel like you have a little bit of a community on that end
Hmm.
and feel cared for because all you're doing is caring for everybody else, especially when I know you and I both had 3.5-year-olds when we had our babies
Hmm.
and potty training and all of that stuff was happening and the regressions from
Chaos.
it was so hard. I don't know how people do it as single parents because Roger literally like had Alex and I had the baby. Like it
Hmm.
was kind of that sense. I feel for the single parents that don't have that support because it was already hard for me with the support. So I feel for the people. So just like check in with your friends and try if they, especially the ones that don't have the support, like they need a
Yeah.
shower sometimes, they
Well, and you
need.
don't know too, maybe they have a partner and they're struggling in their, their marriage, their partnership, whatever the case is. Maybe they're struggling, maybe their partner isn't supportive.
I
So
know.
it's like that's the number one thing. Check in on your mom friends. I mean, check in on your people, but check in on your mom friends, postpartum moms, we have to be supporting them.
Our babies are what, 20 months now, going on 20
Are they
months
already? I just keep telling
I
everybody,
just kind of did the calculations today. I'm like,
I
how old?
haven't
I've been saying
graduated.
18 months off, 18 months for so long. I'm like, there's no way it's still 18 months.
Okay, well that's what I've been doing. Oh yeah, she's
So
18
do
months.
you feel like over the like hump of that, a lot of
I
that
do feel
postpartum
over the big
stuff?
hump. I do feel over the big hump. I feel like I was starting to get there at about a year, but I wasn't. I was still struggling. I had a job change about 5 months ago that really rocked my world.
I know.
And that kind of sunk me back down into some negative places. But I'm on an upswing. I'm coming out of it. I'm really trying to take care of myself and process things. I journal a lot. That helps too.
I want to do that.
Yeah. I go through fits and spurts, and that's one of the things. Again, 20s versus 30s. I love how this keeps coming up is I'm a lot easier on myself,
Yeah, giving yourself grace.
big time. So when the mood strikes, I have at it, and sometimes I'll go for days on end, just journaling and working through things. And then life gets busy, I drop off, and then when I get to it, I get to it.
Yeah. Well, I'm always thinking of you, Brittany. We're in this together. I know it's been so hard and we shared so many tears together and hard times, but you always have a friend in me. And if you ever
Likewise.
just need to drop your kids off, I'll be take the whole gang.
Get the girl gang. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get together soon. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
This
Thank you
was
for
so
being
much fun.
vulnerable. And
Yeah,
I hope that we can do it again.
me too. We will.
I love you.
All right. I love you too.
Bye.
Bye.